Your comments that Havana should be concerned about the Maduro operation is fueling speculation that this administration will turn its sights to Cuba next. Will you make a public commitment today to rule out U.S. regime change in Cuba?
Regime change?
Yes.
Oh, no, I think we would love to see the regime there change. We would like to, that doesn't mean that we're going to make it change, but we would love to see it change. There's no doubt about the fact that it would be of great benefit to the United States if Cuba was no longer governed by an autocratic regime.
But you know what we mean by regime change. We don't mean, I wish someone else were in charge. When we talk about regime change, we're talking about using the power of the United States, usually kinetic power, but often other kinds of coercion. And I'm not even saying that that's always not in our interest. I'm just saying, I'm not asking you whether we would prefer a different kind of government. I'm asking whether you are trying to precipitate the fall of the current regime.
Yeah, but that's statutory. The Helms-Burton Act, the U.S. embargo on Cuba is codified. It was codified in law, and it requires regime change in order for us to lift the embargo.
In the wake of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's capture by the US, lawmakers on Capitol Hill have been divided over the legitimacy of the raid. Addressing Congress, Secretary of State Marco Rubio claims Donald Trump did nothing wrong.
Following the dramatic capture of Venezuela's illegitimate leader, Nicolas Maduro, lawmakers on Capitol Hill have been divided over whether President Trump should have ordered the raid in the first place and if he was obligated to inform Congress ahead of time. There's been several closed-door briefings, but Wednesday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio gave his first public testimony about the mission.
We had a narco-trafficking regime that openly cooperated with the FARC and the ELN and other drug trafficking organizations using their national territory.
Rubio says the U.S. is not at war with Venezuela, nor is it occupying the country. But further military action is not off the table if the interim leader stopped cooperating with the U.S.
There will be impediments and unexpected events along the way. What we have found so far is cooperation, respect, dialogue.
Speaking Tuesday, President Trump was more optimistic.
We are working beautifully with Venezuela. I will tell you, they're going to do better now than they ever did.
But acting President Delcy Rodriguez, Maduro's former second-in-command, insists she's governing without U.S. influence.
The people of Venezuela do not take orders from any external factor. The people of Venezuela have a government, and this government obeys the people.
I'm concerned that we haven't really changed the regime enough and that America's dollars are still going to drug runners.
So far, Rodriguez has released hundreds of political prisoners and has signaled she'll allow U.S. oil companies to access Venezuela's vast reserves.
I have to talk to you about Venezuela. Venezuelan opposition leader said that Venezuela will be free and would not be here without the vision and courage of US President Donald Trump. This is, of course, after the US forces captured dictator Nicolas Maduro and his wife from Caracas, and they're now facing charges in New York. The Wall Street Journal is running a poll that suggests that US voters narrowly support Maduro's removal, but they don't want the US running Venezuela. What's your assessment of how Americans are feeling about this over there?
Yeah, and by the way, I can tell you because I represent that schism. Like, I also kind of feel like I'm glad that Maduro is out, but wasn't a big, look, I'm not a big, unlike Iran, you know, we can't go to every single regime we don't like and throw them out, right? Otherwise, we'd be throwing out 75% of all regimes around the world, certainly in South America and Central America. Having said that, I'll tell you this, that the Venezuelan people will and are looking at Donald Trump as a hero. That there's no question about. I think they are thrilled that Maduro is gone. Look, I was in Venezuela for a couple of weeks where I shot a documentary a few years ago. And I saw firsthand what the people are going through, how difficult it is for them. Difficult actually isn't the right word. It's horrific. It is post-apocalyptic. I don't use that word lightly. That's not me being hyperbolic. It really is. The death and destruction you see across that country is unbelievable. The city looks normal. Caracas looks normal. You have skyrises and buildings and restaurants, but it is an eerie landscape. I was filming at one point when I hear pop, pop, pop. I looked around and there was a guy shot right in front of me and my crew as we're getting B-roll. And we turned the camera and started filming this. The guy's lying, dying in the street. People just walking by because it's happened so often. A cop walked up to him, took a look at him and walked away. It was crazy. I went to the barrios, the most dangerous parts of the city, to talk to people there. I was walking down the street with a guy in those barrios at night. And I was like, what are you doing out at night? He said, I'm looking for food. Pigeon, cat, dog, whatever you can find. I mean, it was a horrific existence in Venezuela, and I think Trump has changed that. And I think in that way, I think he'll be looked upon as a hero by the Venezuelans. Although I did find it so interesting with Machado. Do you remember that first press conference when they asked him Machado what her role would be? He's like, I don't know, she has a role. I don't think she has support. Well, what do you think? He's so typical, right? Oh my, he's so predictable. She comes to the White House. I love you, Trump. Gives him the Nobel Peace Prize. He's like, I think there might be a role for Machado. I think she may have a role. It's so
Donald Trump, he is very
unique.
unique. But as you say, look, he's certainly a hero in the eyes of many Venezuelans. So many people celebrating after what happened with Maduro, absolutely. Army, there's so much going on in the world. We have to talk about Gaza. The White House announced that it was moving ahead with the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal, Donald Trump's 20-point plan for Gaza. Today, the president said that his board of peace might replace the UN, hinting, make of that what you will, saying that the UN has never lived up to its potential. Now, of course, this body of peace, or board of peace, I should say, is the body that is meant to oversee Gaza's post-war development. Trump has invited 60 countries to join the board. Permanent membership will be available to those who pay $1 billion. What's your assessment, Army? Is it going to work?
First of all, I'm shocked. Shocked. It's not called Trump's Board of Peace, okay? But what are you gonna do? Maybe you just forgot. Look, I think it's really interesting. Certainly when it comes to in the charter, the idea ostensibly is to rebuild Gaza, but in the charter itself, it doesn't actually mention Gaza. So yes, that's why the speculation that it might be a replacement for the UN, which I think is great. I did an entire movie, a theatrical film on the UN, where I travel the world visiting the UN, interviewing officials of the UN, and I can tell you it's a piece of garbage, right? It has been for decades. So yeah, replacing the UN would be phenomenal, but replacing it with the same kind of people, I don't see what the point of that. That's the problem with the UN in general. That you're sitting with, the democracies are sitting with dictators, and that's why there's nothing that can be done there, right? So I think when his invitation includes people like Putin and Turkey and Qatar, those aren't very PC people. Those are not people rolling hard toward peace. I think that would create the same kind of problems we saw with the UN itself. So I'm not sure what that will do. But look, I think we need to look for alternatives. I do applaud him for looking outside the box for something else. And I think that Gaza is a good place to start. Look, let's see what can be done with the Gaza Strip. Let's see if it can be rebuilt in a way that is able to replace Hamas, put in another leadership that would not try to create and sow violence all across Israel. It's a good point to start. Let's see what happens, and then I'll come back on a comment.